All right, guys. The goal of this video is to review with you how we're going to use graphic organizers as part of your requirements on your final draft. And at this point in your writing, you've had a chance to research, and now we want to start to display how you're going to show this information in your essay. So one reason why we're doing a graphic organizer instead of a typical standard traditional formal outline is because we're going to use the symbols that you have in an organizer to be really purposeful about not just what we're going to put the page, but how we're going to make the decisions to present it on the page. So stick with me here. All right, so first we have the two main organizers that I think you're going to use. The first one we would use for descriptions, and the second one we would use for compare and contrast. So this is what's called a top hat. You're probably more familiar with this Venn diagram, but I don't love how we get this teeny little space to write. Um, so instead of having this little space that I'm trying to squeeze everything in, I'm going to stick with this. So this gives me this nice, yeah, ignore that little guy over there, this nice big space to fit all of the things that are the same in the paragraphs. Okay. Um, and now the question is, if I'm using these two organizers, how I'm going to use these to put my information on the page. There are two main ways that you're going to structure your paper, and it really kind of depends on your preference, but it also depends on the topic that you chose. So if you are right now thinking the prompt is a compare and contrast, obviously I'm only going to be using this Venn diagram, then I want you to slow down and think about this for a second. In your paper, you have to compare a song or a quote or a verse or a poem or just what some famous person has said to all these events in a chapter. All right. So if I am only using this Venn diagram, then that means I have to do the entire explanation of the song in this teeny little box in one little paragraph. And that's going to be a lot of information to try to fit into one spot. So that's why instead you might choose to talk about your quote in a descriptive paragraph first. So now I can tell you who said it. I can tell you what was it said. What does that actually mean? I could talk about why that quote was said. I could maybe even get into when that quote was said. I don't know, all of these things. I don't have to fill in all these bubbles, but as a starting point, that might be something for me to try to do before I get into the compare and contrast part of it. If I ignore that part, I'm just going to have compare and contrast, compare and contrast, compare and contrast. This is going to be a lot of information filled onto a page without really getting into depth into anything. And I want to give my reader more explanation than I'm going to be able to get with just a bunch of snippets of information. So that's why your paper might actually wind up looking something more along the lines of this, where you might have your quote here and then explain that quote and then move into a paragraph that compares that quote and outlines it out and explains more. Now, if I think that more than one thing is significant about it, I might have who, and this first paragraph here might be more about who said it. Or if I think it's more important about the where that quote was said, then I could have a quote about the where, and I could have a quote about the why. Why was that quote said? So this might wind up being 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs based on one quote. And you'll see very quickly how suddenly that paper that looks like 2 to 3 pages is never going to happen could happen without with really on accident. You could wind up having too much information if you split your paragraphs and your chapters out to this way. If you think that's too much, you could also consider using this form, where this could be a paragraph 1 where you explain a quote, and then a paragraph 2 where you take that quote and you explore what it has in common or not in common with the chapter that it follows. And you could do the same thing here. Okay. we could work through here, and then suddenly I am 4 chapters in, and I've got 8 paragraphs, an introduction to body, and suddenly my paper that I thought was never going to be 2 to 3 pages long is now 10 paragraphs long, and I'm definitely feeling in that space. Okay, so if you decide to do it this way, you're going to have your description and your paragraphs. The next question, or the next thing that you need to decide, is how you want to structure it. So we're going to lay another organizer over top of this organizer that shows us how we are ordering it from there. So I'm drawing these boxes around here because I'm going to show you this first one. If I am doing a timeline paper, which would mean, or chronological paper, means that I would pick a chapter at the beginning, maybe go to chapter 4, maybe go to chapter 8, maybe go to chapter 12. And I'm going in chronological order through the book. You could organize it that way. Same thing, if I take that same structure and I could do chronological, or order and sequence, I could also take this same idea and maybe go with what I think is order of importance. And the order of importance organizer looks the same, but it just means now instead of having to have chapter 12 down here and chapter 1 over here, I go by order of importance. Maybe I felt like chapter 10 was a really, really important chapter in the book. So I'm going to start with that first. And then I'm going to go chapter 2, and then I'm going to go chapter 6, and maybe I'll wind up back here with chapter 3. I don't know. That's completely made up. Please do not put your paper in that order because I just wrote that right there. But that would be them putting it in order of importance. The organizer, how I block it out, looks the same though. And then the last one, and this, you would need more than just one of these, but I just wanted to show this. If you think that chapter 4, okay, is causing the events that happen later in chapter 10, then this is how you would mark that out. You would put the triangle. Triangle here means cause, and the box means effect. So you might have 3 chapters that you feel like what happens in this chapter directly causes is an effect for what happens later. So you might have a chain of these. You might have another triangle with a description leading to another effect, something looking like that. Okay, so the quick cheat sheet here, if we're doing a compare and contrast, if you are comparing and contrasting within a paragraph, you're going to use the top hat. This is compare and contrast. If you are doing a description, that's your bubbles. And you can have as many bubbles as you think is appropriate for your topic. Okay, if you are doing chronological or order of importance, that's the rectangles. And ideally, it would go top down depending on how much space that you have. You could also do least important to most important. You could start with what you think has the least impact on the story and end with what you think has the most impact on the story. You could certainly do it either way for that one. Problem solution is your triangle leading to your square. Okay, and then you could also do a circle, which is a cause, and the effect. Oh, I think I just told you those backwards. Here's your cause and effect. Cause and effect. And then your circle is your problem. So if we think about like chapter 1, that sets up the problem that needs to be solved in later chapter. When Rorschach is arrested, that sets a problem that has to be solved later for us. Okay, that's a really quick rundown. That's as quick as I can make it. Certainly, I will be around to help you guys answer questions. If you have any problems, raise your hand, holler, shout. Well, don't shout, but get my attention somehow, and I will come help you. Good luck.